About 2 years ago, I was just waiting for the tram in Krakow, just minding my business, and two people approached me wanting to advertise their religious organization. And I really didn't have anything better to do. I was just waiting for the tram, and we had a really nice talk about God and faith and all that stuff. And then they gave me a booklet, and it was like, "Is evolution real?" It was about creationism. As a neurobiologist, that really hit me, because they were like, "Yeah, evolution is just a theory." And it's not, no. So there's this thing called Cunningham's law. It states that if you want to find an answer to a certain question, you don't ask a question, you just pose the wrong answer. So someone will just come and tell you why you're wrong and stupid and all this stuff. So that's exactly what happened to me, like reverse psychology to these people. I just went home, sat down, and read everything I could about evolution. Well, with this knowledge, I competed in the ADSO space contest. I met my really awesome person, my future boss, astronaut Matthias Maurer. I got an internship at the European Space Agency and worked at the microbiology space research group led by Dr. Ralph Muller at the European Space Center. And I collaborated with the awesome UCL iGEM team based in London. So yeah, thanks for the motivation, street preachers. So what is life? Well, usually when we think about life, we think about animals or plants or bacteria, but life is a lot richer than that. There are viruses which use the environment of a cell to replicate. There are prions, rogue proteins that use other proteins to replicate themselves. There are transposons that are parasitic DNA. There are organisms like you and me, like clumps of cells. Each one has the same DNA, but a completely different function. And there are hives composed of thousands of different animals, and there's millions of different animals working together like a single organism. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that you can say is alive. And a lot of smart people argue about what is alive or not alive. Like, is an embryo alive, a virus alive, a protein alive? Life isn't a thing. Just imagine for a second that life isn't an object. You can't touch it, you can't weigh it. It's a process. A process that is no different than the process of a rock falling down because of the laws of gravity, or ice forming because the water freezes. Life is, in the essence, the result of the second law of thermodynamics. The second law states that everything must just get destroyed, basically. The entropy, the disorder of a system, has to increase over time. Entropy is like the state of disorder of a certain biological or whatever else system. It's a lot more complex than that, but for the sake of this talk, let's just keep it at that. So the second law states that everything has to disintegrate. Everything has to fall apart. But we don't really do that on a daily basis. Entropy has this tendency to get dispersed, like a glass that has a big tendency to shatter into small fragments, but these fragments don't really want to organize themselves back into a glass. A different example would be sugar. It's a really big, it's a complex molecule, and it carries a lot of information. When it disintegrates, the entropy, the scale of disorder of the system increases, the information decreases. We as living systems, we eat these sugars. I mean, a lot of people eat sugar, and like you're drinking Coke, so you are drinking sugar, and you are quickening this process. So you basically quicken the process of entropy. You're pretty organized structures, all of you. So when you or a single cell is in a certain place, the overall entropy, the overall disorder must increase because you are structured. And laws of physics try to get you disintegrated. So this causes the probability of you to disintegrate to increase. But the thing is, we are not closed systems. We're open ones. We constantly eat, plants photosynthesize, the sun constantly adds energy to our biosphere. We are thermodynamically open systems. Just like a baby. I mean, it's a pretty organized structure. Very organized little structure, but when you leave it alone, then the chaos it can create is just incredible. So basically, the overall mess is increased by us. We quicken the process of energy dispersal. So now you might think okay, well, that's cool and all, but that doesn't really explain why did life form in the first place. And a lot of people say that the probability of the first organism, the first cell just spontaneously arising from the primordial soup is incredibly small, and they are correct. I mean, the chances of life just forming in just by itself is equal to the probability of a jumbo jet, a Boeing jumbo jet, being formed by a gust of wind blowing over a junkyard. It's, well, not really probable. But life doesn't work that way. To give you an example, imagine that you're playing the lottery. You have to get 6 numbers out of 49. And the chances of you having a 50% chance of winning, you would have to buy 7 million lottery tickets. Or you could have a second approach, which is based you take one number and you check if it's correct. If it's not, you take it away, you check another number is correct, so you stay with it, you check another number is also correct, you stay with it, and you learn like that. You would only need 56 lottery tickets to have a 50% chance of winning. And this is exactly what life does. It's the same thing. It's a step-by-step approach, and it's called evolution. But evolution doesn't go in any certain direction. There isn't any transcendental design in the universe that causes a certain biological form to arise. That's why very often we can find really weird designs in us. Sometimes we are overcomplicated, like this. As an example of human, pretty dumb design, or biological, stupid design. It's not the smartest or the most complex system that survives. It's the one that is the fittest, the one that is the most adaptable to change. When we're researching life, we're trying to find this first life, we try to create something that is called a minimal cell. A minimal cell is basically like a cell that has only the necessary ingredients it needs to survive. Nothing else. Only the most important stuff inside a cell. And there are 2 approaches to do this. The first one is called the top-down approach. It's basically you take a cell, like your cell, and you strip it of all the unnecessary stuff. You just leave the things that it really needs to survive. The other approach is called the bottom-up approach. So you basically take the components that life is made of and stick them up together, like Frankenstein, and you create life. And this approach is really cool because it enables us to experiment with completely new forms of life, new universal ancestor. Take DNA, for example. The backbone of DNA is a sugar, deoxyribose. Imagine a system that, this kind of template, that isn't based on deoxyribose, but on a completely different chemical structure, like triose or hexose, whatever else you want. Imagine a structure that doesn't have 4 base pairs, but 6 or 8. These forms of life are called xenoorganisms. They're XNA. And they're the future because they're extremely safe to work with. Because of the enormous difference in DNA and XNA, when they interact with one another, they can't really, they can't interact at all. There's a genetic firewall between them. So these would be extremely safe things. We could teach kids at school about molecular biology using XNA organisms, or even send these organisms to different planets. Well, this might sound like science fiction. Okay, XNA and all that stuff, I get it. But it's really not. It's happening right now. The Human Genome Project, just a decade ago completed, cost $2.7 billion. It was hailed, it was announced in the White House, and it was hailed as one of the greatest achievements of humankind. Today, DNA sequencing is done for $1,000, performed daily. XNA already exists. The first synthetic cell that had a computer as a parent, basically, was made in 2010. In 2016, the first synthetic minimal cell was made. It's on a top-down approach. AI is only assisting us further in this research. It can analyze genomes, edit them, and optimize them. In 2010, a new drug formulation was discovered by an AI system with a 2.5 cargo increase of the product. It took only a week, something that normally takes years for human researchers to do. Just last year, the first digital to biological converter was announced. It's a machine that's at its very heart is a DNA printer. It's a printer just like the ones we use every day, but instead of ink, it has nucleotides. It's completely autonomous from any human assistance. It can print DNA, RNA, viral particles, proteins. All you need to do is just write what you want and send it to print, wherever you want. In your basement, on the other side of the globe, or on a different planet. So, during my work at ESA, I was tasked with developing a biomining method for the Moon and Mars and asteroids. Biomining means using microorganisms, bacteria or fungi, to extract metals from certain rocks. And this is actually a pretty popular thing. Over 25% of the world's copper today is obtained by biomining methods. So I was told to, okay, you have Mars, try to extract iron or copper or uranium or gold from the rocks for future astronauts. And this is a tricky question because a tricky task because we don't really know exactly what we are going to find there. We can guess, but we don't know exactly because the surface of Mars and of the Moon and asteroids, it can vary enormously from meter to meter. When you usually send a mining rig, then you know exactly what you are going to mine and the material that you want to mine. And then you design the best machine that is supposed to mine iron, for example, from a certain ore. But if you don't know what you are going to mine, then it's pretty hard to come up with a system that you want to send to outer space. So what you actually need is a system that is versatile, that can evolve, that can adapt, that can heal by itself and can learn. You need a biological system. Imagine sending a digital to biological converter to the surface of Mars. And you're doing your mining operations, and you're using a certain protein to extract, for example, iron from the ore. But then in the lab on Earth, you find a different protein designed by AI that is better, 100 times better, more effective. So normally what you would do is you put it in a rocket, even a reusable rocket, Elon, and you send it out to space, spending millions of dollars in the process. Or you can just email it. Imagine a system that is always updating, always learning. Just like an update on your smartphone, but using new genetic software with the same biological hardware. This genetic code can be designed by AI, making it from a protein that we can discover into one that we have designed. This is not only, it's not only biomining stuff. We can also send food, drugs, or a radio. A radio. The person that you see here is called Joe Davis. He's one of the most amazing people I have ever met in my life. Seriously, Google him. He created a radio out of bacteria, basically. He took some bacteria that were edited with a certain gene called salicylate from marine sponges, and you put them in a medium with certain metals, which you could, by the way, obtain from the surface of Mars if you had the perfect protein. And he plated the bacteria on a dish, and they grew. They polymerized the metals, and they grew into a crystal radio, which connected by wires, the ground, an antenna, and your headsets. You could listen to radio broadcasts. Imagine a puddle in the road. And this is a really smart puddle. It's the smartest puddle you ever met. And this puddle thinks, hey, I'm in a hole in the road. And this hole in the road just seems to have the exact width as me and depth as me, the same volume as me. It's as if someone designed this hole in the road specially for me. You can clearly see the absurd of this. The laws of physics don't adapt to life. Life is the result of the laws of physics. Life is a process and can be utilized as any other process that exists. The origin of life brings us one step closer and closer to its future. I am aware that a lot of people might find this type of thinking pretty reductionist, that it makes life look boring, that your life is more special. But just remember that your life is special. Life isn't designed by an unknown force, by some transcendent thing. It's so much more than that. Your atoms were born in stars. The same laws of physics that govern the creation of life make supernovas explode. The galaxies do spin. We can use our life You can use the laws of physics to destroy, yeah, but also to create things of incredible beauty. We can discover, we can sing, we can dance, we can explore the world around us. We can gaze at the universe in wonder. We will learn, we will experience hate and love, death and birth. Intelligent design is not our heritage, but it is our future.